So let's talk about how you can buy a home without a real estate agent. And I'm Paul Frazier here in Bend, Oregon, 30 years in Bend, broker, and would like to share some of my insights. And if I can help you, great. A lot of questions out there on the internet about how you can now currently buy a home without a real estate agent with the new laws. Because the new laws, if you haven't heard, just Google NRA lawsuit, and you can get really educated if you aren't already. There's a lot that has changed inside of real estate, and I am a top real estate agent in my area here in Bend, Oregon, and thought I would just share with you like what your options are. So let's talk about it. Let's start with the process. Um, Anymore, most of my clients, I'm sure you're probably the same. You probably are on Zillow, Realtor.com, one of those popular sites, and it's so easy for anyone to find their own home. So, do you need a real estate agent to find your house? No, not at all. In fact, most of my clients are focused only on buying their house, and so all of their attention is directed toward what they want, the neighborhoods they want, and you can do a lot of your own research and get a lot of information online. You could watch YouTube videos forever about Bend, Oregon, and you can learn a lot. You probably know more than your real estate agent does about the exact thing that you want. So anymore, my clients call me, we talk about what they want, and I'll say, why don't you send me a list of the properties that you're interested in, and then I can get familiar with what you're looking for, and then I can add my insight. But you don't need me to find your house. It used to be that way. And the only time that changes is if I know of a property that's not on the market. And I can say, hey, there's this pocket listing I have. And you can watch my other videos. I talk a lot about our pocket listings. That's something we have a lot. So if you don't find what you want online, you might be looking for other resources for those properties. So that's one way a realtor could give you the advantage in finding a rare home. So that happens all the time. But you can find your own homes. You could create your own list of properties that you want to see. And now I'm trying to put myself into your shoes, and what are the problems that you might experience or challenges you might face if you're out there trying to find a home. If I were you, I would probably make that list, and then I would attempt to contact those properties. And what you're going to do is you're probably going to click on a button on Zillow or Realtor.com, and you're going to end up on the phone with an agent. If you can figure out by taking the address, let's say off of Zillow, and then just put it into Google, and maybe you find the listing agent's actual listing of that property, and you find out who the listing agent is, and you're able to contact them through their website in an attempt to cut out any buyer's agent commissions. I hope you're following me. I'm assuming you have a knowledge of some kind to help you. If you can get a hold of the listing agent and schedule showings on your own, and they would, each individual listing agent would in theory show you their house, and you don't have an agent. You're unrepresented because in the past, maybe you've bought a home that way, and you represented yourself. You picked your own inspector. You had all of that lined up. You had your own lender. You don't need anything from an agent. And maybe you had a bad experience with that, and that's why you're going to just go down that road again. Totally understand it. It's easy to have a bad experience in real estate. So I understand that. So some things have changed, and just to kind of get us moving in that direction, you would probably have a lot more success with that angle if you can contact for sale by owner listings. And you can find these on Zillow. In fact, if you use your filters and you select for sale by owner properties on whatever website you're using, you will be able to find that. Sometimes on those listings, they list their phone number for you to contact them directly. And those properties are going to be the most likely for you to be able to represent yourself and cut out any listing fees. that you would have, if you're working with a property that's currently listed on the MLS, the multiple listing service. So that would be my top suggestion, is try to find those for sale by owners. And some things that you want to be aware of, though, when you're working with a for sale by owner, and then we'll circle back to the other options. I've worked with a lot of owners who are trying to sell their own homes, and they'll put their listing online. Now, sometimes you can find a great property. The reason why those sellers are trying to sell it themselves 100% of the time is because they've done it before, they're confident, and they want to make more money on the sale. Totally fine. When I contact a for sale by owner listing as an agent, I'm usually saying, is the house available? Have a few questions for you about the property, and maybe a few suggestions to try to help you sell it, because probably the pictures are probably terrible, and maybe offer a few tips and suggestions. And then I say, are you willing to pay my commission, 2.5%, let's just say. And usually it's yes, or it'll be like a reduced commission. That doesn't really matter to you, but I'm just telling you. Then I would get a feel for the seller. And that's usually a different experience, because the sellers are usually in love with their homes. And that's why they have it listed so high. Almost across the board, for sale by owner properties are listed high. They're not listed, and they probably interviewed agents that gave them a number that was more competitive on the market, typically, and they decided, no, I'm going to go with my number and I'm going to give it a shot. And I don't blame them at all. So that's what generally happens. And so you might find that those for sale by owner homes, if you run comps on them, and if you need help running comps, you could ask them if they ran comps, but they could always kind of tweak those comps. You might want to call an agent and say, will you run the comps for me on this property? Okay. So try that. But you might also find out that the seller could be difficult to work with, and they usually are kind of stubborn. They probably have taken a lot of rejection. They've had a lot of calls from agents, and they're on the defensive. That's typically if you call a for sale by owner listing, you might want to try to bring down their anxiety a little bit by telling them that you really think their house is great. You'd love to see it, and have a great conversation if you can with them. If you find that they're going to be difficult, and a lot of times they will tell you that they are going to be difficult, they'll say something like, I am firm on my price, so if you can't come with a full price offer, don't even bother coming. They'll say something like that. That's a red flag, and that's pretty common for sale by owners. But however, you got to remember, you would be buying this property with no real estate commissions. You could buy directly from them. So you're saving that. That's going to be around 5 to 6%. Okay, so you would want to see that number reflected in the price, right? So just do the math on that, run the comps, and say, hey, no commissions. We should reduce, because all of those comps most likely paid a commission, especially right now at the time of this recording. All of the comps have paid commissions. So the numbers reflect a sale that paid a 5% commission to listing agent and buyer's agent. So there's a tip for you right there. That could and should save you 5% of the sale price. If they say to you, no, we've already done that, we're compensating for that, we took that into consideration. Okay, but you still need to confirm that. You still need to be able to accurately look at comps and figure out your price. And then you're going to get into the transaction. Hopefully you go meet, you like the house, maybe you connected well enough with the seller, and you agreed how you would go about doing this deal. You're going to need to either have an attorney that you can hire that would just write the offer for you. They're not going to do anything other than that. Okay, so that could be a good thing. It just depends. Or you could go directly to a title company. You could find some online forms that kind of a generic form that you could write the offer on, or construct an offer, and however you want to. however you want to, maybe even just on a piece of paper, agree, take it, get it notarized, take it to and your title company can provide notaries, and the details of the transaction start to roll out. And you just need to be working directly with the seller at all times. The next thing you're going to be doing is you're going to be trying to find a good inspector. If you don't know any of the inspectors in the area, you need to understand that there are big differences in the style and the experience of the inspectors. I have chiseled out over the years my top guys that I use. In this case, they are men. And there are some female inspectors out there if you choose to want to work with a woman. I don't think it matters at all. Whoever's great, whoever's the best, okay? So currently I have my two top people, maybe three, and it depends on their schedule. Now, when you wrote your offer, make sure that you're including a 7 to 10 business day inspection period. Write that down. Not 3 days. Do not waive your inspection. Okay, do not do that. Do not put yourself in risk. You need a way to get out of this transaction if you get into it and you discover things that are wrong with it and you want out. So do not waive your inspection period or your due diligence. In Oregon, we have one main inspection, and then based on the recommendations from the inspector, we may call for other inspections. But it doesn't happen a lot, but it can happen. And it just depends on the property. So 7 to 10 business day inspection period, okay? And with that, you can use the inspection to justify a termination. I highly recommend that you do hire a professional inspector so that you have description. He's going to crawl under the house. He's going to walk on the roof. And make sure when you're interviewing your inspectors that they have a large number of transactions. They've done hundreds of inspections, and they know the areas, because in our area we have areas of Bend that are historical properties, and you need to be familiar with the way those homes were built. It's very different than a newer home. There'll be rock foundations, no foundations, all kinds of weird stuff, no insulation, old windows, old oil heating systems, all electric, natural gas. What is it? Like, you need to know all of this, okay? When you're interviewing these inspectors, ask them to send you an example of how they present their inspections. You want photos and you want descriptions. And you don't want just copy and pasted in language. You want them to put their comments and recommendations into each issue of concern. You want the must fix kind of things, deferred maintenance things that need to be dealt with in the next 5 to 10 years, really. And health and safety issues, smoke alarms, electrical concerns, that kind of thing. So these are just a few things for you when you're selecting your inspector. Get the inspection done, hopefully within the first 2 or 3 days, because you need the additional time to stay inside of your timeline. And you want to get those reports figured out. You might have to extend that period if you need to call in other inspectors, contractors to look at other things, possibly put together estimates on blowing that wall out and adding on the bedroom or putting a new roof on. We generally do all of that. We will get all of the inspections from all the contractors with pricing and everything that you need. So that's something you need to be at the home too when those inspections are being done, okay? So you can't just call them up and say, hey, John, can you just go over there? No, you have to be at the home for those inspections. And the other thing you want to make sure is that the seller is not there lingering around trying to interject his thoughts or their ideas on why they don't agree with the inspector. They need to stay out of your way. So you need to tell them to please not be present at any of these inspections, okay? That can be awkward, and if you're dealing with the wrong personality type, they might get upset about that. Just so you know, that's something that we normally handle to make sure there's privacy and time for the buyers to come over and get another look at the property, maybe twice or 3 times if it's needed. So keep that in mind. get the inspection done quickly. Then you need to get your list of things, create what we call a repair addendum. Hopefully you can find some of these generic addendums online. And you're going to send this addendum with the items that you want repaired. Make sure to be detailed about those requests. Do you want this repair to be made by a professional? And ask for receipts. You don't want repairs to be made by the seller, who will try to navigate that because he wants to save money. He will possibly offer to do those repairs himself. I do not recommend that. I recommend that you have your own people do it so that we know it was done right. It's warranted by a professional contractor under Oregon state law. So all of the labor and materials are detailed and you have an invoice. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. So the other approach you could make on your inspection is that you could say, hey, we're going to take a seller credit. Instead of asking for repairs, get a seller credit. So you estimate the cost of these things and you come up with a number and say, we will take $25,000 for the new roof and the electrical problems and the miscellaneous things, and you have the whole list of stuff listed, and you put that on them. So this is what we need to move forward. And then we're negotiating that in the background. We do that every day. It's a hassle, but it's part of what we do. So you're going to be handling that. Most likely that is when transactions fall apart. So keep in mind, if you're financing, you probably have already ordered and maybe paid for your appraisal. And you've already paid for your inspection, which will be $400 to $600 typically. And you've spent a lot of time with meeting with contractors and so on. And if you don't live in the area, you would be traveling into Bend to meet with these people for those inspections. If you do live in town, that's great. It's a little easier. Otherwise, that's something that we would normally have done as your agent. So you want to have that managed. You want to get that either, whatever way you're going to go. You're going to ask for repairs. You're going to ask for the seller credit. Okay. If you can still put that together and they reduce the price of the house by $25,000 or they do the inspection period, now you are moving forward, and then you would actually release the inspection, the timeline where you say, okay, the contingency is released, or you just let it run out. Okay, you get to the end of the 10 business days and it just runs out. Now you're moving forward. Now, if you're doing financing, you still have to wait for the appraisal. Nothing's done until it's done, right? It's just, real estate's kind of that way. So, you got to be aware of things depending on your financing. If you're a conventional loan, if you're FHA, VA, okay, there are many different types of loans. Depending on the loan, the appraiser can come out, inspect the house, and he might say, let's say if you have an FHA loan or a VA loan, he's going to look at that house and it has to meet certain criteria. Any peeling paint, you got trim up there that needs its peeling. Well, so the appraiser says in the end, he might come back and say, we're approving the appraisal, however, with these conditions, and these things need to be fixed on the house before we can close the transaction. Well, the seller has already agreed to give you $25,000 on the inspection repair, and that wasn't one of the things like the peeling paint. You may not have thought that was an issue at all, so that wasn't included. But now you have to go to the seller and say, unfortunately, we have these conditions for the appraisal to meet your number, and we need you to fix these things. And so you have to have the house painted or something, which is to your benefit. If they would agree on that, that'd be great. And it's not your fault, right? It's the house. It's the condition of the home. So that's on them. If they want this to move forward, they need to do that, okay? The reason why you don't offer to do the work or to pay for it is because your transaction might fail. Let's just say you lose your job, or underwriters last day, they decide that they don't approve the loan. That happens, okay? That happens. And then you would have invested that money into the seller's house and the deal is over. So the seller needs to have those repairs done. Again, he needs to take that cost. Normally, we navigate all these things and we are negotiating on your behalf. not directly with the seller, but with the seller's agent, okay, hopefully. If it's with the buyer, if it's with a for sale by owner, a FSBO, then we have to deal with the seller. And typically these deals fall apart because sellers have a big ego. They're trying to save money. Now they feel like they're getting abused and walked on and pushed around and bullied by you. And they're going to have a problem with you. And the personalities is generally where we come into problems that we can't resolve. It's very common in real estate. And a lot of times deals fall apart because of the personality of sometimes the agent or the seller or the buyer or the buyer's agent. It's all these personalities. Now we in real estate, we try to protect our client, buyer or seller, from the personality of the seller or the buyer, okay? The agents try to stay, we're working in the middle to keep things moving forward in a way that is beneficial for our clients. So keep that in mind. That's something that's like probably going to take you by surprise when you realize it. But I'm trying to give you a heads up on that. So that's a thing. And here's another thing also. I want you to just be careful. If you're out there and you're trying to buy a home without any representation. So I have hundreds of transactions. Okay, so I have been sifting and sorting through like mortgage brokers. Mortgage brokers compete for our business as realtors in our area. They're always reaching out to us. Hey, I want to get together, take you to lunch. Let's have coffee, kind of this and that. And over the years, we find out who the lenders are who can perform, who can get it done. I specifically have lenders that I know I call when I have a transaction that has a certain description. Maybe it's very difficult. I need to make sure I'm working with a lender that is seasoned, that have it together. They have solved so many problems over the years. They know every in and out, and they know how to navigate very difficult scenarios. Then you have your new mortgage brokers who are great. They communicate really well. They're so motivated. They promise you everything. Yeah, I think I can do it for 5%. They just fill out the application, right? And then I'll go over the details, and they get you kind of locked in and moving forward. Those deals can fall apart. Any deal can fall apart, even with a great lender. Just be aware of that. Like, these things happen in our world all the time. But when you're dealing with a top performing, seasoned broker with hundreds of transactions, and I'm referring to mortgage lenders now, the odds are better. So that's one of the things that we provide as agents, in our market, is we're going right to the best, right to top tier, to try to eliminate any problems for you, because that's costing you time and money. If you get near the end of a transaction and you can't close the transaction because something maybe your lender promised you that they could not actually deliver, very common. It does happen. I'm so sorry to say it, but it's true. Even with the best brokers, it can happen. But I try to bring my A team to you. All right. Now, if you don't know how to go get started, the online market for mortgage lenders is probably going to be full of minefields. Everyone says they can do it. Everyone says they're better. And I unfortunately don't know really what to say, except that you got to get recommendations from somebody like me who has already weeded out all of the bad apples. Okay. And when people call me and say they have an approval letter online, it's, hey, that's great. I'm glad that you got an approval letter, but for me, it's probably worthless. We need to use someone we can trust, because we don't want to just pretend like we're buying. We want to close the transaction, right? So that's where we need to be. So hopefully you can find somebody that will recommend a broker, a mortgage lender, and also an escrow company. You need a good escrow company. And there's a lot of good escrow officers. They work really hard. They do a great job. But there are a few that I would highly recommend to stay away from. I don't know why they always seem to make it difficult, or they won't communicate well. And there's always just trouble and unnecessary red flags and frustration. So again, get those referrals for what companies are the best. And really get more than one referral. Get a few ideas on that. Get different experiences. And with all of that, if you can get to if you're financing, you can get through all of, some of the mortgage stuff and the inspection issues, and hopefully stay inside of your legal timelines that you've described in your offer and get to a closing. And a lot of people have done it in the past. I think that in our current world where lawsuits are just more and more prevalent, that is the concern. And that is one thing that we are constantly doing in real estate, is protecting our clients from any legal issues. Very, very important. And you're tippy-toeing through a minefield, literally, to avoid those problems. And if you can, or if you're just a cash buyer, then we can eliminate that whole process. You still need the inspection and you still need a clear title. So you need the escrow company to do that investigative work to make sure you have a clear title and make sure that any liens are removed. And you still need to navigate all of that with the seller if there are any problems, okay? And if you can get through all that stuff, yeah, you can buy a house without a realtor involved. And it's doable, it's possible, except there is one other thing that I need to circle back to now. And that is, if you have found your home online, and this is like the scenario B. Scenario A was you're buying directly from the seller. Scenario B is you don't have an agent and you find a house online that you love, that you want to see. You don't have an agent, you don't want to pay an agent. And in the past, you could just click that button on Zillow, get a phone. They're going to put you in touch with, maybe the seller, or you can find the seller's, contact information. And sorry about that, I had a call coming in. And you can meet with the listing agent and they would show you the home. They would sell you the home. They would represent you. And I have done this. I would say be very careful with that. It's going to be hard for you to get good representation as a buyer from the listing agent. And I have a way that I manage that where I'm very transparent, and I just say, if I'm representing the seller, I will represent you if you will write an offer that is everything that my seller wants. There's no negotiating. I'm not going to take your low offer to my client when I'm representing them first. I think ethically it's wrong. So, I don't want to do that. Bring your own agent. Now that the laws have changed with the NAR lawsuit, if you reach out to the listing agent and they're willing to show you the house, you will have to sign a buyer broker agreement with them. And it could be for whatever their commission is. And it's legal now. It's the law now. So you can't just go look at a house unless you're talking directly with the seller. And the commissions have already been explained and agreed upon in their listing agreement. Whatever the percent is to the buyer and the seller, that's already been determined. The law now does not allow the buyer's agent commission to be advertised on the MLS. So you're not going to see that anymore. However, the listing agent can show you the house. They can represent you if their seller is agreeing with that. But you will be paying their commission. That's already built into the number. It's already there. Be aware of that. You will need to negotiate a lower commission if they are going to represent you, but you will be navigating that with the listing agent. Keep in mind, I'm making this video currently. These are the laws. They could be changing. Make sure that you stay up on the newest laws, okay? And I know this video is going long. I don't normally do long content like this, but I wanted to put it out there. There's a lot of people looking for, how can I buy a home without using an agent? And I don't blame you for that, but I just want to caution you to make sure that you're safe in the transaction, that you're covered, you have good representation, that you know what you're doing. Maybe you have good documents, or you have an attorney that can provide you with a set of documents that will keep you safer in the transaction. Okay, and I haven't even touched on the local knowledge, which I'll get into on another video. But for now, thank you for listening. Paul Frazier, Bend, Oregon broker here, 30 years in Bend. Google me if you'd like to contact me. I have a business profile on Google, and I would love to help you if possible. Best of luck to you guys. Hopefully you can get to Bend, Oregon and see this beautiful place that we live in. I hope we can meet sometime in the future. Have a great day.